right, y'all. So here we are in the kitchen, and we're trying to think about topics that we wanted to talk about on that little intro video that you may or may not have seen. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. There were a number of topics that came about that we might be wanting to engage, and the big picture is us talking through what we're engaging in our life and sharing it with y'all through this, and inviting your comments and thoughts about it all. Like I say, there's lots to talk about, and so we've been engaging in another kind of brainstorming session. Like, we don't want to talk about all these things, like, let's talk about parenting because we're awesome parents. Depending on who you ask, I'm not that good. And so anyway, I think I'm awesome at it, but different people have different opinions. So we're not trying to be up here and be experts. We're trying to be like regular folks who are doing regular folk stuff, trying to get through. Money and financial concerns are a big situation in our life right now, because I am not working at one of those jobs where you go and work for somebody with your degree or whatever. And because I'm not doing that, I'm subject to lower wages and some additional challenges. I don't get benefits with ride sharing, but I can buy my own medical benefits and all that stuff. And so anyway,
I wonder if it's less than what you get at my school.
I wonder if it's less than what she's paying for in her corporate job. She's a teacher. She works for the local school district, and so they don't pay that well here. And the benefits, they cover things, but when I had a different corporate job with a different corporation when I worked in healthcare, she claims that my benefits were better than hers, and maybe they were.
Yeah. So we're in Arizona now. We were in Illinois prior to this, and the amount that we paid for our health insurance was a fraction of what we're paying now. And the coverage...
What fraction was it?
I have to look at the numbers. It's easily half.
Wow. Dizzy!
Yeah. But we're on here a high deductible where we could use we have the HSA card, and so what we then pay out of pocket is higher. So, we pay more and our out of pocket is more than what we paid in Illinois. We had deductible. No, we just had straight copay. And so
no deductibles, we just had copays.
Yeah, no deductibles, we just had copays. And the copays were totally reasonable. And so I don't know, it's just been mind-boggling. It's been so crazy here. The level of service, and then the access to the providers here has been not very good.
It's the overall, but how many dollars we're working with, and then we're paying more for insurance. And then another thing that didn't get mentioned or clarified is that we have had a maybe lower level of medical need over the last number of years because of our level of whatever health. We're in pretty good shape. We're relatively healthy. Of course, I can lose some weight, and we're working on that. We'll probably talk about that. Maybe y'all should leave a comment and tell me about what's going on with you and your diet and your weight. That's, for some people, that's an ongoing situation. And so those things, again, are intertwined. And so, we have a lower level of need for insurance, yet we're paying more for it and using it less, and, requiring more of our budget to sustain it, but then not using it. And so there's a lot of little dynamics in there. Go ahead.
Well, so that goes into mental health stuff, and then then complicates with finances
and how our finances are impacting our mental health.
And
what are you experiencing in those areas? Are you having some challenges related to job status, finances, and effects on mental health and stuff like that? Let us know. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. So within finances, I am a teacher, and so moving states has I've seen, the different, different pays. I took a $20,000 pay cut moving from Illinois to Arizona. But people would say, like, well, cost of living is way less in Arizona.
Not that much less.
No.
Especially with the way the growth in the housing market have been going here, and just the 5 years that we've been here, it has really risen.
Yeah, Arizona is no longer, a inexpensive place to live. Living in Mesa, we're paying the same as when we lived in Chicago. But
we're making less, and we're paying more for insurance.
Yeah.
So that complicated. And she makes less also, even though she's doing the same job and she has another year of experience, she's still making way less. And so there's a lot of dynamics. Tell us about your situation. Are you a teacher? Did you take a pay cut to come here? What's up? Let us know.
And Comment. Then, another thing with that, in Illinois, they made everybody get paid 12 months. Whereas in Arizona, it's a 10-month pay. So taking home salary, then figuring out what am I going to do for those 2 months during the summer. And so that complicates things. You got to think about, do I set it aside? Where do I set it aside? And so it's lots of things that you have to balance with finances.
The first year we were married, we didn't do all that planning ahead like she's done over the years, and our whole summer we put it on a credit card.
Yeah, we put on a credit card, and then we were getting out of the hole by the time it came to December, and I was like, and that's when I think life insurance was due. There was a few big things, and Christmas came. I was like, okay, we're skimping on Christmas. We're not doing it. And you were like, no.
Okay, kids, we can't get any gifts this year because mommy and daddy didn't budget for the summer.
Well,
sorry.
It wasn't for kids. We didn't have kids. It was you and me.
That's true.
It's totally fair. And so I think that's then when we we started talking about our finances and budgeting was after, that first full year of being married when we didn't plan for July.
So there's a lot bound up in there. Budgeting, Christmas gifts, kids, we didn't have kids at that time. So there's a lot bound up in there. And so, we can parse those things out. Something strikes a chord, leave a comment, let us know. We want to talk about this with y'all.
One thing we did, from the get-go, that joint finances. I know in some, relationships, how to manage finances. I've seen different ways. I felt like we were pretty equal coming in, or in terms of fresh starting. Our pay was pretty comparable. And so we just decided we're a team. We're gonna put it all together.
Team Windham podcast.
So we put our finances all together. Stuff.
That's a whole other can of worms right there. We'll have to have another conversation about gifts, and that speaks to some of our early readings together. So
5 love languages.
Yes, gifts is a love language. And so Gary Chapman's 5 love languages, we read it a long time ago when we were steeped in the evangelical church. We could talk about that too. The church, the Big C church. So many things to talk about.
I would also just because we read some of this stuff in the Big C evangelical church, and some of those books were very evangelical.
Very. Capital E, evangelical.
We don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
You jumped right to throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Why?
The way you were talking about those books had some your tone.
My tone.
That was very.
Did my tone convey disdain for the evangelical church? Let us know in the comments. Comment down below. And so we combined our finances. We had a joint account. Then off of that joint account, we have a bunch of accounts for other stuff.
Yeah,
Car
we would then
maintenance,
do little
groceries.
funds for, we put money away every month for like car maintenance or car insurance, so that when that bill came, we would have money. Set money aside every month for if we wanted to do like trips or buying fun purchases, going out on dates.
Gifts for each other.
Yeah, gifts for each other, dates. So we'd have money that we would like plan. Definitely, we're gonna spend this, and then some we're gonna save like to add up to make like a bigger. If we wanted to go away for a weekend or something, so we had an account to take that from. And I feel like we were really good with managing our money our first few years, and then since having a kid, our finances have just been imploded.
So there's one. How has having children impacted your finances? Leave a comment. Tell us what's up. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, and it's I don't want to. Yeah, I wonder if we're spending our money appropriately. Do we buy her too many things? Do we do too many fun things?
Many fun things.
For the amount of money, we can.
Gotta have a limit on fun. Sorry, kids. We've exhausted our fun for the month. No more fun.
Or we can have fun, but let's do fun that's not going to cost us extra money. Let's go to
the $5 open skate at Skateland.
You want to go to this jumpy place, but this one's already got a membership paid for, so
type of thing. Strategic jumpy places.
Yeah, and kids are expensive. Doing fun stuff is expensive.
They like to do fun stuff that costs money, and so how do you manage those kinds of kid desires for, going to the toy section, when you go to Target or whatever? I remember when I was a kid, I always wanted to go to the toy section. I remember it seemed like, it was pulling teeth to get a toy, and my cousin would have this whole universe of toys, right? And we'd show up with one action figure, and then we'd play and, anyway. So how do you manage those things? How do you decide how to spend money? Or maybe your budget is so tight that the decision's already made for you. Questioning the status quo. Why is it like that? Because it sucks, and it's got to be a lot of stress for you, and then that stress will translate into your household, and that stress ultimately lands on the kids. And we're talking about all this because we see that happening in our lives too.
And yeah, so on paper, we can definitely make our budget work. And so that's interesting. I like what you said, does the budget already answer the question for you of whether or not you're going to get the fun thing, or do it? And to me, our budget would say no to a lot of things, but then we don't say no to things.
I don't say no to a lot of things. I say yes to a lot of things. Action, reflection, new action.
And so, we need to do some reflection on where we're spending. This is not minus the last week of January. I've recorded everything that we have spent. We've recorded, and we've, he's at least looked at a snapshot of our weekly spending, but everything since January 1st.
To find trends and patterns and things like that.
Yeah, we used to do that, and then that went out the window in terms of consistency. And there would be times here and there where we'd get it, and so I'm wanting to celebrate me. I've done it. We've been looking at it. So now, we've got 5 months of data. We can go through and look at the trends. Groceries. we're $24 over our budgeted amount. And I think this month was like the closest. But our
But the budgeted amount
is
way,
2.5
way
times the amount when we were first married. Up until even 10 years ago.
It seems to have.
It's 2.5 times more. And our kid does not eat 2.5 times. Like, no.
The cost of groceries has gone up. And it seems more recently there's been a sharper
Increase. And so it's like, you take that into account. We're spending more on groceries than we ever did before. So then that money comes from somewhere. And so that's then the ability to comfortably have fun. That money is not going to our groceries.
So now we're eating our fun.
Yeah. Or that could be neither one. We can eat hamburgers.
What you're talking about, like, instead of buying things at like a restaurant, make them at home in a comparable thing,
Yeah.
and save money on it, because the budget is determining that for us. We're less able to go out because the cost of McDonald's has increased as well.
Yes. 30 some odd dollars the last 2 times when I went to McDonald's.
Yeah.
And that's like going and picking up, not like an Uber Eats delivery for it. And so I haven't gotten the last 2 times because let's take that $20 that would be my meal and put it to doing something else. Like, it's, making conscious choices about where you want the money to go, and like that's showing your priorities. And so if we want it, I don't know, she loves McDonald's, and so don't want to take that away from her.
I do too. I've been eating McDonald's for a long time. Maybe I shouldn't be, but
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, then it's just making choices so that we can live within our numbers. We gotta look back and see, like, where is the stuff going, because we're spending, groceries. So I started out, we're $24 over our budget amount. But our like fun amount, which counts for, if she wants to buy a toy or we want to buy clothes, we bought roller skates, Uber Eats, going out to restaurants or going to the skating rink. So all of that stuff is under fun. And we have been consistently doubling the amount that we have set aside. Which then means, that money has to come from someplace else, or we're seeing like the credit card is racking up, and so gonna have to pay for it somehow. And so, like, do we just want to budget double amount, but then we won't have money to set aside for like Christmas presents, or set aside for birthday presents, or throwing her a birthday party, or going on vacation, because that now we're taking the money that we set aside for like vacations and using that to pay for the fun. And so when it comes time for vacation time,
robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah. So like for that stuff, we're not going into debt, but it's, when the time comes for big presents or to do a trip, we're not going to have money. And so are we going to go into debt then, or are we going to say no to those things?
And that's the choices.
Yeah.
If something has resonated with you, of course we want to hear from you. Like, subscribe, comment, watch these videos till the end so you can see a link to subscribe to the channel. You can see a link to another video, and we can continue the conversation.